Trump says that basically Putin is going to be forced, and he have no choice but to give in to what Trump wants.
Very simply, if the price of oil comes down, Putin's going to drop out. He's going to have no choice. He's going to drop out of that war. And when I found out that the European nations were buying oil from Russia, and as you know, I'm very close to India. I'm very close to the Prime Minister of India. I spoke to him the other day, wished him a happy birthday. We have a very good relationship. He put out a beautiful statement, too. We have, but I said, I sanctioned them. China is paying a very large tariff right now to the United States. But I'm willing to do other things, but not when the people that I'm fighting for are buying oil from Russia. If the oil price comes down, very simply, Russia will settle. And the oil price is way down. We got it way down. We're drilling and we produce more oil than anybody else in the world. We're doing a lot. But I was disappointed to see that. And the Prime Minister was disappointed to see that. And it wasn't him. It was other countries. And you can't do that. You can't do that. You can't. That's not playing fair with the United States. And we can't have that.
So it would be no choice. No choice. Putin would have to just give up the war. I mean, there's so much troubling on many levels. There's about three things I want to point out from that soundbite right there. Some of the things that he said. We'll start with that one. That Putin will have no choice. I worry that he may believe that he may actually think Putin will have no choice. That kind of simplistic thought that all I have to do is bring either the price of oil down or limit how much money he can make, and then that pressure point will cause him to give in to do whatever it is that Trump wants. And I'm just like, do you not know anything about Russian history? Have you never seen what the Russians did against Napoleon? Although sometimes you claim that, and actually you state that. You say that Russia has a history of these kind of things, so you do apparently know. Or you see what kind of extraordinary suffering they were willing to do in World War I before the Russian Revolution started. 5 million dead before that. It took that kind of casualties from mismanagement from the Tsar and their military leaders, et cetera, on top of an economic collapse, et cetera, and a bunch of other stuff. It certainly wasn't that simple. But the point being that it took 5 million Russians dead to finally push them over the edge to where they rose up. And then, of course, during World War II, it was more like 20, depending on who you want to talk to, 25, 30 million on top of that. So, and they not only didn't revolt, that they just knuckled down and went in harder. This is an existential threat for Russia, and there is no financial pressure point on Russia that's going to cause them to just give away, because that's why Russia keeps saying over and over, it's the core causes. It's the root causes of all this, which led to the war in the first place, that must be acknowledged. It's not just territory. It's not just where the line of contact is and where the lines are going to be on the map afterwards. Those are secondary things. The primary thing is that there's not going to be a hostile force on their border that's friendly to NATO, that is hostile categorically to Russia, i.e. the Zelensky regime and a lot of what the Russians consider neo-fascists, et cetera. Ukraine has a different word. Doesn't matter. The Russians consider that hostile, and they will not stop and have a negotiated settlement on terms that no matter what the price of oil will be, they will suffer a lot. You can't even calculate how much it would be before they're going to just give up on that. There's no rational path. The only way that Russia could be forced into a settlement against its wishes is if they didn't have the physical capacity to continue to the war. That's the only way. And you see, if you're confused still on that, and you think, well, then let's put more pressure on them. Let's just keep going a little bit further until finally we find that pressure point. Look at Zelensky. Zelensky has all the powers against him. He has all the fundamentals against him, just irrevocably. And yet, has he given up? His country is just bombarded from one border to the next, all north to south, east to west, all the way up to the European borders. And they just keep getting pummeled night after night with these long-range forces. They lose thousands of troops every month. They continue to methodically be whittled down. They have not had any kind of an offensive success since the very short-term Kursk offensive, which was almost suicidal and was for about 70,000 of their troops, gained nothing in the end. And they, in fact, lost more of another territory in Sumy, which Russia still has a toehold in to this day. So that's everything has been going against Ukraine all the way since about November 2022, or November 2023, we'll say. And so yet their economy is fine. I think I showed you yesterday that Zelensky has said, look, I need 120 billion to keep the war going next year. And that's just to keep the state alive. He said, we can probably muster about 60 of that on our own. So I need another 60 billion. So far, the most anybody's talking about is 2.3 billion that they'll give him. So he's saying, I don't even know how we're going to exist. And yet, he still hasn't given up. He still is not willing to negotiate. Now, what possible ration could anybody point to that Russia, with Putin, who's been in power for 20 years, with all of the history Russia has, with all of their natural resources, with the vast country that they have, that Russia could come up with a pain point that would cause them to surrender when the Ukraine side won't, when they have all these pressures. You see what I'm saying? If you know anything about Russia, you know there's not going to be a pain point. You can wish there was, you can hope there is, but there's not, and there's no rational reason to think there is. And so to place policy and to place your future success on the hope that something irrational happens, you're setting yourself up for domestic disaster. Our side is not going to come out looking good on this. You've seen John Mearsheimer on our show more than once say it's going to be decided on the battlefield because we abjectly refuse to have it settled on the negotiating table where we could at least come out with something beneficial and positive for our side. We reject all that. So the only thing left to Russia is an eventual military success. I mean, that's just what we're setting ourselves up for. And then we'll have to deal with the fallout of that, of everybody in the world knowing that we, this most powerful military alliance in the history of mankind, couldn't even keep little Ukraine from falling to Russia. That's just where we're going here, folks. The other thing here said, I thought that was interesting. He said, Trump said, I just found out that Russia is selling oil to some European countries. I just found that out. And I was going, wait, I mean, does he think that nobody knows what's going on and that he can say that and nobody's going to do what we just did and said, what are you talking about? Everybody knows it. It's all on the topic of conversation all the time. It's in all the headlines. People discuss it. Does he really not know? I don't know, but that's troublesome that he says, I just found out. And then Starmer actually, because he's standing right next to him when he's talking about that, they look over at Starmer and catch out this pretty tough question from his own media.
Prime Minister, President Trump has said he's ready to impose major sanctions on Russia if NATO countries stop purchasing Russian oil. He's got a point, hasn't he?
I think it is a challenge to Europe. There are a number of European countries which are too reliant on energy from Russia. The UK actually obviously has almost got nothing at all, but we do need to bear down and work with our European counterparts here. There are one or two countries, I think, that do need to look again at the question of energy. There's no one silver bullet here. We do have to have a wider suite of sanctions, which we've put in place. We've said we stand with Ukraine from the start to the finish, and that means we must continue.
Yeah, that's not a good answer. I mean, you can see him kind of like going, well, I mean, I guess that we're not buying that much oil from Russia. We've got a zero, and I guess there's some. You see, I mean, you're called out there on the carpet, and everybody in Trump's just kind of looking at him, going, "What you going to say?" So it wasn't a good look for Starmer, but it was pretty embarrassing for him. And as a matter of fact, on Air Force One on the way back, Trump was asked about how embarrassed Starmer was.
Did the Prime Minister talk to you about Ukraine? He indicated he did. What were his arguments for what you should do?
He was really a little bit embarrassed, and he's rightfully, that I called Europe, NATO countries, EU countries, you can call it either way because they're very similar, but that I caught them buying oil from Russia. And he said, that's not good. I mean, I appreciated that he said that. He said, that's not good. Now, how about that? We're supposed to do all this stuff, and they're buying oil from Russia.
So we're 3.5 years into this war. Now, 8 months into the Trump administration, and you caught Europe buying oil from Russia? I mean, that makes it sound like he didn't know. I mean, does he not know how embarrassing that is? forget about Starmer being embarrassed. He was, but Trump is not embarrassed. At least Starmer recognized the duplicity with what he's talking about, that we're putting sanctions on Russia. And he really quickly pivoted over to that. Well, we're going to put sanctions on Russia, and we're looking at a multitude of things that we need to get done, et cetera. But we told Ukraine we'll be with them from the start to the finish. And so, yeah, the ugly finish, and meaning that, like, as they go down the drain, you're hooking your country and your reputation to it, and foolishly going down with the ship. Why would you do that? Number one. But I guess they just have this delusion that some magic thing will happen, and it won't end up that way, because, well, it never has. Since World War II, we've always figured something out. We've always talked our way out of stuff, and there was never actually a cost anything. There was some embarrassment here and there and some lack of success on what we wanted. But I mean, hey, we're the West, and we kind of stuck together, and there was no actual cost. But now I think that we are in a situation where, with President Trump talking about things that have no chance of success, that he's going to get the Taliban to give us an air base, that China's going to sit passively by if we come with the avowed statement that it's close to their nuclear weapons production facilities, that we're going to put maybe sanctions on Russia that are harsh, and that he'll have no choice but to. I mean, when our adversaries see this, when other countries around the world see this, they think, what is wrong with you people, man? I mean, you talk about things that push people back in the direction of the East, and that this growing conglomeration of BRICS and the SCO and all kinds of things, where they're coming up with new economic forums, the Chinese Belt and Road, all kinds of bilateral, multilateral events, et cetera. And they see that no one on the other side is putting pressure on anybody to do anything, but they are going, have you seen that? And they have seen that, and they continue to see that. And when it comes to what is going to be good for our country, folks, I'm just telling you, the days of running roughshod like we're the Wild West cowboy, and that we can do whatever we want and nobody else has the power to do anything, those days are over. They're past tense, probably never to be seen again, certainly not in our lifetimes. If anything, the power dynamic is continuing to shift to the east, and now it's doing so faster because of our own actions. So we are facilitating and accelerating our own cost and our own demise if it goes that far. Because Russia is not going to be forced into anything. Bagram is not coming back to us, and China will not stand by passively when we try to do that. And then this whole thing about putting more sanctions on Russia, come on, we've tried this for 3.5 years, more than 3.5 years now. And it always failed. And because of the construction that Russia retooled its economy to prevent the pressure it has from the West to do sanctions stuff, they've made themselves, if not sanctions proof, greatly sanctions resistant. So you don't even have the leverage to play anymore, because the things you would do, now Russia has other outlets with other partners in the rest of the world, and they continue to, if you wanted to isolate Russia, that's obviously a thing of the past as well. That's not even, I'm talking even recently, because Putin was isolated earlier in this war to a certain degree, but now that's moved in the opposite direction. Now then you see him being feted in places all the time. He's at international visits. He's going to places, other countries are coming to them. They're expanding just, culturally, they're expanding economically, et cetera. And Russia is playing the long game. Russia is playing the long game militarily and economically. And they see that we have the cards, and there's no reason to take a lot of risk. I suspect that if things started getting tight, that they would be willing to take risks, because they certainly have levers to do that. But so far, they and the Chinese, of course, are famous for their long suffering and their long view. They always look to the long term, not to the short term, or not even to the midterm. But they always have a long-term vision in mind, and they're playing it out like that right now. And I saw an article, I guess it was yesterday when I was on the plane on the way to Houston, that China is basically saying, hey, we're just going to sit back and watch the U.S. just destroy itself. We're not going to get involved. We don't have to take any action. We don't need to do anything to accelerate this. You guys are going to do it on your own. And I think that there's some plausibility to that. I think they may end up doing that, because they see what is the classic thing they say? If you see your enemy struggling, don't help him out. Just let him continue to founder. Don't do something dumb that's going to get him out of the trouble. And I think that's what China's play is right now. And it's not going to be good for us. And kind of toward that end, and again, kind of put a little bow on this. One last question that Trump was asked aboard Air Force One after the meeting. He was asked about, how much longer are you going to give President Putin before this ceasefire? Which it's an odd question because that's been taken off the table a long time ago. Russia's not going to do a ceasefire. I've been telling you that from the first time it came up, really in December when that idea came up. There's no way they were going to do that, and certainly they haven't. But now then, Trump was asked that question, and I think he infers something in his answer. See if you can catch it.
It's been a month since your meeting with President Putin. Is it time for a ceasefire to come?
Doesn't feel like it. But at the right time, if I have to do it, it'll be harsh.
When he says I'll do it, I think that he means that if there's no ceasefire at the right time, then I'll have all of these huge sanctions and secondary tariffs on all these different countries, and it'll be harsh or whatever. He still has this. I suspect it's not a fantasy that he thinks it'll work. If he had that fantasy, I think he would have already done it. If he thought that putting in those sanctions on Russia and secondary tariffs on people who buy their oil, if he thought that would work, I think he would have already done it. Other than India, and I think that there's multiple things going on with that one country as well. But if he thought a broader application would work, I think he would have already done it. I think, though, what he means when he says this is that I'm just going to say this stuff, and so people will think I'm going to do something later, and then that threat that maybe I'll act will cause them to actually do what I want them to do. And I'm just telling you, there's zero chance of that. Not unlikely, not improbable, but zero. They're not going to do it because they know that we don't have the stick. They know that we don't have the resources to compel compliance on anything, and that if we did those things, it would be painful to them, especially where you're talking about China, India, and Brazil. It would cause them some pain, which they wouldn't like, and they don't want to go down that path. But they are also playing for the medium and long term, all those countries, and they know that we can't sustain it. That's why when Trump had this 145% tariff on China earlier on, they just said, you can't sustain that. And he was right. And Trump went off of it shortly, not long after it went in. It went down to 30%. I think they're still trying to negotiate some things even as we speak here. But I think they know that if there's a pressure point to have somewhere, it's our pressure point. It's that if we take this action, it will be us who is hurt in the medium and long term and not them. And I think that they're willing to play this out. All this stuff is not good for the United States, and it's something we need to change. But all I can do is tell you what he's saying and what the realities are here. Obviously, we have no influence over anything in the Trump administration. I don't know that anybody does. I don't know that cabinet secretaries do, frankly. But that's where we are today, folks. That's all we got for you today on this special edition from Houston, Texas, the Daniel Davis Deep Dive Roadshow version. We'll probably be back again with you tomorrow. And like always, if there's any breaking news, you can count on us coming to join you. But in the meantime, hope you have a good Friday. We'll see you next time on the Daniel Davis Deep Dive.